So to child's pose, we're going to look at it first from the point of view of the structure, the different joints in the body, and then we'll have a look at it in terms of how breath might work with it, and then we'll see if there's any kind of contraindications. So thank you, Sophie. Will you bring yourself into a child's pose? So once you come into child's pose, straight up, for some people, they like to have their arms down behind by their sides, and alternatively, bring your hands out in front of you. Some people like their arms out in front of them, so they can be out fully, or they can even be softened. So soften this elbow a little bit and see, does that feel better or worse?
Better.
Better. With a little bit more space here. For some people, they may not be able to get their head as far as the ground, and for that, you can use a prop, a block, or I'm going to use a blanket. Just place your head on that blanket, and how's that?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're the kind of, and the other one is going wide, changing with the width of your legs. So take your legs slightly wider and see how that is. So they're the kind of different variations that we're going to run through. So let's begin with the beginning. I'm going to take this out from you, Sophie. So into your traditional child's pose. So with the knees together. So we've got full bend on the knees, straight legs, and then you're going to come forward. And you'll see when she comes forward, then there's a lovely rounding here that happens in the back. So flexion in the back if that's possible. Depending then on people's head and neck, there'll be more or less release there. This can be a very passive pose. And what's it like to just take your arms, release your arms to the ground so they kind of go. Now, if you could have seen the change in shape there, how's that on your shoulders?
Yeah.
So there's a lot more release here. The shoulder blade has now come into a kind of a neutral, and we're letting gravity to just release it down. In this pose, we've got a lot of flexion going on here in the back. So if she's going to breathe, if you take a breath into there, can you feel where it feels restricted? Mm-hmm. So it's going to feel restricted. A belly breath, or the kind of deep breath, can't get into her belly because obviously her belly is compressed. And so the breath comes into more of the back body. In the back body, the lungs are much bigger in the back body. And the lungs can probably, say in the front body, they maybe come to here. In the back body, they may come the whole way to here. So there's a lot more lung space in the back body. So this time, Sophie, I'm going to invite you to breathe. I'm going to place my hands here and then breathe into my hands. So see, can you fill into your back body? And then release. I'm going to do that one more time. Breathing in. And then, so can you feel the breath more coming into your back body? Mm-hmm. And a little bit less restricted now, so the breath isn't as restricted because now you've got space for the breath. Let's try out finding breath into the lungs. So for this, I'm going to invite you to take your arms forward, elbows on the ground, and like a spire, so this sort of position. Mm-hmm. And take your head, your hand is going to go up, and you let them go for a second, put your head down. And so this kind of, and see, can your elbows come slightly further forward? And how is that? Now, how are you there? Is that comfortable?
Yeah.
So now, again, if I can put my hands on you. Here, there's a lot of lungs at the side body. So see, what does it feel like to breathe? Can you feel almost like you're breathing into your armpits? Is that an experience that you're having?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so now we've freed up. So with the arms out straight, we had more here. And now we've freed more space around here. So this is beautiful for breath, to find the breath. It typically is not going to be a belly breath, obviously, because the belly is compressed, but it's a breath into the whole back body. See what it's like now to take your arms out straight. So here you can see, once she's taken her arms out straight, the shoulders have changed. So can you feel that across your shoulders, a different sensation across your shoulders? Also notice that the arch in her back has changed. So she's more into extension rather than flexion. Depends on the person, what is really kind of comfortable. And what happens if you then take your fingers out and make little castles with your fingers so that your hands become really active. If you have a little look, and I'll show you what I mean, this sort of a shape, so that your hands become really active and the arms become active. So taking the hands out as far as they can go, lengthening the arms as far as they go, and become really active. Now again, you'll see a complete change in the head, in the neck, this is her back, it's not her neck, in her back, and you can see how it's become much more active. Take the head to now just to become long, so it's active rather than hanging. And now you have this completely different sensation, I suspect, internally. That's a much more active pose.
Yeah.
So by leading it from the shoulders, but can I place my hands on your head? Even coming in, and the head can go down if that's necessary, but still it will be slightly active. And the whole thing, I would imagine her belly has become active as well, has it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much the restorative pose she was in a minute ago. And then you can just relax all that down, let everything melt. So letting it melt is going to take the softness out of the hands, softness into the shoulders, softness into the elbows, into the hands. And so even though this is typically a restorative pose or a restful pose, we can make it an active and a dynamic pose. Let's experiment with the difference. If I'm going to put this prop under your head, so just lift your head and place your head there. So now, again, come back into that active pose if you can. And then release it back. And so again, we have, by using this, we've got much more activity in the neck. And the neck is not folding forward, but is long, and will give a different sensation. The real question is, what are we using this pose for, and what is comfortable in the pose and what is comfortable for the person. Come back up now all together for a second. That was all with legs together, which has a certain amount of flexion but no adduction or abduction in the hip. This time take your knees out, and I'm going to get you to just take your knees. We'll go the whole way out actually, so that there will be the width of them, approximately the width of the mat. This can be really nice for people who like belly breathing. It can be really nice for people who have big bellies, for pregnant people, and for people with big boobs. I shouldn't say boobs, but breasts. So come forward now and see how that is. So in terms of your breath, can you feel that here your breath does go into your belly? Yeah, she's nodding. So again, so the focus is off the back, the breathing into the back lungs, because the front is now available. Here, the leg is now externally rotated, so there's a lot more going on in the hip. Can you feel that more into the hip joint, the ball and socket joint? And once again, we have the same option with the upper body. So straight away, because she has been able to come down, there's a lot less flexion going on in her back, so there's a lot less curve, which, depending on the person, maybe more comfortable or less comfortable. Here, I suspect she is passive. Does that feel like you're able to give weight? So she's giving weight, that's a nod. She's giving weight even though it's straight rather than the curve that was there, the flexion that was there earlier. So now can you come back? Do you remember that active pose that we did with the hands? So taking the hands and then, lovely. And now, yeah. And so how was that? Has that intensified everything? Intensified the spine, intensified the belly, intensified under the arms, and I suspect even into your hips. As it's slightly more intense in your hips and into your legs. Perfect. Brilliant. And then come back up from that, and we'll go to one other permutation, which is where we have the legs completely close together. Now they're fully wide. This time I want them slightly apart so that they're kind of catching at your rib cage. So yeah, kind of that kind of just approximately. Give that a go and see how that is. Now Sophie has a lot of mobility, so it's easy for her to come down. She's able to sit back on her hips. For some of your students, they won't be able to even do this with their foot, where their foot is out straight. They may not be able to get this where they're able to actually sit back on their hips, and so their bums may be way up in the air. And again, depending on the purpose of the pose, you might want to give them support with that, give them a bolster or a block, or they may be happy to stay active in that pose. And again, also their toes may need to be tucked depending on, or be supported. A roll under their blanket. Actually, let me show you that. A roll. Sorry, Sophie. Now, can you just lift your feet for a second? And come back down again. So if there's a difficulty in taking these feet out flat, the blanket like that can be nice. Is that better or worse for you?
It's nice.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so we'll leave it there. And in terms of then, once we have this changed position of the legs, it's a kind of a halfway house. So there isn't the same external rotation as there is on the hips. So is that nice on the hips? Not the flexion of the back, so she's got the straight back. How is the breath?
It's nice.
And and active. Are you able to surrender into it? That's see this change when she surrendered into it, and then become back active into it again. So you become, and so you'll see in the muscles whether they are able to give weight and whether they can receive support. So out of all of those, Sophie, what was your personal favourite?
The first one.
Okay, so do you want to bring yourself back into that? You can throw out the blanket from underneath. It's very much, this is a pose that a lot of people don't like, taking the head down below the heart. So you'll see the head is below the heart. May not be good for certain people. Certain people may not have the flexion in the upper body. Some people may have a lot going on in their structure, in their lower body. And they may have a lot of restrictions in the joints and in the muscles of the back body. But if you find the way that really works for you, it can be very, very restorative and just allowing you to just give weight. So I'm going to place my hand on your thing. Just allow yourself melt. See the shift? Allow yourself, give weight to the ground, to give weight, and then receive support. Breathing into all of the different organs. I suspect you can feel your intestines and your belly. Feel your ribs. Become aware of your heart. Maybe you can even hear your heart a little bit. Lungs become very obvious because you're breathing. The sensation of where breath goes to changes. Cool. Have some fun with it. Play with it in the different positions, and then see if you can get other people in their bodies to give you feedback and let you, so that you can find out how it feels for them in their body, what they like, what the purpose of it is, and have some fun with it. Thank you.